Good morning. Welcome to the Umpqua Unitarian Universalist Congregation. I am Glynis Peterson. Now, for those of you who are maybe with us for the first time, I'd like to extend a special welcome. Now, due to our high COVID numbers in Douglas County, we're unfortunately still closed for in-person services, and they had an emergency decision to stay closed for this week. We will let you know as soon as we know when it is safe, and that is when we will open. Our speaker this week is Reverend Stephan Landale. He is available for the after-service discussion on Zoom today, Sunday, January 16th at 11:30. The link is in your UmQuest. We hope you can join us. Now, we can use your help here. The Sunday Services Committee and soon our board will have openings for anyone who wants to help make this beloved community continue smoothly. So just please let us know. We can definitely use a good hand, or two, or three. Let us hold a quiet moment together as our chalice is lit. As the wild wind bites, so does the still flame warm us. As the deep snows block our doors, so does the gentle flame bring us out. As the crackling cold air stops our breath, so does the radiant flame draw from us the words we need to give and to receive. Words of greeting, words of comfort, words of solace, words to challenge our minds, and words to bring us to action. Let us gaze upon this, our common flame, so that we may remember who we are and what we can do when we are together. Opening words. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other.
Oh, I woke up this morning with my mind, and it will stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind, and it will stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind, and it will stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Staying on freedom, walking and talking with my mind, and it will staying on freedom, walking and talking with my mind, and it will staying on freedom. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. And it will stay on freedom, singing and praying with my mind. And it will stay on freedom, singing and praying with my mind. And it will stay on freedom. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. And it will stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind, and it will stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind, and it will stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
a reading today from Transformed Conformist in Strength to Love by Martin Luther King. This hour in history needs a dedicated circle of transformed nonconformists. Our planet teeters on the brink of atomic annihilation. Dangerous passions of pride, hatred, and selfishness are enthroned in our lives. Truth lies prostrate on the rugged hills of nameless cavalries, and men do reverence before false gods of nationalism and materialism. The saving of our world from pending doom will come not through the complacent adjustment of the conforming majority, but through the creative maladjustment of non-conforming minority. Some years ago, Professor Bixler reminded us of the danger of overstressing the well-adjusted life. Everybody passionately seeks to be well-adjusted. We must, of course, be well-adjusted if we are to avoid neurotic personalities. But there are some things in our world to which we must be maladjusted. I confess that I never intend to become adjusted to the evils of segregation and the crippling effects of discrimination, to the moral degeneracy of religious bigotry, and the corroding effects of narrow sectarianism, to economic conditions that deprive people of work and food, and to the insanities of militarism and the self-defeating effects of physical violence. Human salvation lies in the hands of the creative, maladjusted. And now I'd like you to relax in your chairs. Sit back and let it hold you up. Feel each muscle relaxing and sinking ever slowly into your chair. And you take in great big deep breath and breathe it back out, relaxing your muscles as you breathe out, and breathe in again and breathe out. Notice anything that is still tightened in your body and let it go. And breathe in and out. Amid all the noise in our lives, we take this moment to sit in silence, to give thanks for another day, to give thanks for all those in our lives who have brought us warmth and love, to give thanks for the gift of life. We know we are on our pilgrimage here, but a deep, brief moment in time. Let us open ourselves here, now, to the process of becoming more whole, of living more fully, of giving and forgiving more freely, of understanding more completely, meaning of our lives here on this earth. And now I would like to introduce Reverend Stephan Landale. He is a hospice chaplain and served UU congregations as interim, settled, and consulting minister for over a dozen years. He has 2 children and is newly married to his wife, Heather.
Good morning, Roseburg friends. Have you ever reached a point in your life when you said, "No more, I've had enough"? Have you ever realized that you were living someone else's dreams, living a charade? Have you ever found the strength to take off the golden handcuffs that kept you in a job that was not leaving you with a real sense of accomplishment or a contribution and was perhaps even in a toxic environment? Have you ever ended a relationship, faced the void, and had no idea what would come next? It can take us a long, long time to reach that point. Change is scary. But it's not only that. Society sends us waves of messages to conform, to be well adjusted and happy. It's much easier to float on those messages downstream than to get off the raft and swim against the current or to the shore. In his sermon, Transformed Nonconformist, Martin Luther King says, "Success, recognition, and conformity are the bywords of the modern world, where everyone seems to crave the anesthetizing security of being identified with the majority." And I would add here that the majority doesn't need to mean the majority of the country, but the majority of the people around you. On top of these societal pressures come the expectations of family members and other loved ones. Long before we may find the clarity and feel the courage to speak out or walk out or speak up, we may feel ill at ease, even maladjusted, for a long period of time. There's nothing wrong with this. In a world where we feel nearly constant pressures to fit in and aspire to models created by our consumer culture, we may not know what to do with this feeling of maladjustment. Our society pathologizes maladjustment. In his book, Care of the Soul, Thomas More writes, "Professional psychology has created a catalog of disorders, known as a DSM-3, there have been subsequent editions, which is used by doctors and insurance companies to help diagnose and standardize problems of emotional life and behavior with precision. For example, there's a category called adjustment disorders. The problem is that adjusting to life, while perhaps sane to all outward appearances, may sometimes be detrimental to the soul. One day I would like to make up my own DSM-3 with a list of disorders I have seen in my practice. For example, I would want to include the diagnosis psychological modernism, an uncritical acceptance of the modern values of the world. It includes blind faith in technology, inordinate attachment to mere material gadgets and conveniences, uncritical acceptance of the march of scientific progress, and a lifestyle dictated by advertising." End quote. That was Thomas More. I love the way More turns the concept of adjustment disorder on its head. Mainstream psychology, he says, labels as unhealthy people's inability to adjust to new circumstances. But aren't there times when adjusting readily is a sign of poor emotional and spiritual health? More states that to be happily adjusted to something diseased is itself a type of disorder. People devoted to emotional and spiritual health ought to be thinking not only about the difficulties some people face in making significant adjustments at all, but also about the disease of far more of us being well too adjusted, regardless of circumstance. You may have heard the story about Ralph Waldo Emerson visiting Henry David Thoreau in jail for civil disobedience. Emerson asks his friend, "What are you doing in there?" Thoreau replies, "What are you doing out there?" Emerson must have thought that there was something wrong, perhaps maladjusted, with Thoreau being in jail. But Thoreau would rather be maladjusted to injustice while sitting in jail than to go on pretending that everything was all right in the world. Although, to be fair, we might note that the small size of his cabin on Walden Pond, it's possible he had more room in jail. Our society's overemphasis on being well-adjusted has disturbing ramifications. I quote now from one of the most insightful, challenging books I have ever read, called Raids on the Unspeakable, by Thomas Merton, a radical Catholic monk who corresponded with King and influenced the peace movement before his death in 1968. This is taken from Merton's essay, A Devout Meditation and Memory of Adolf Eichmann. He writes, "One of the most disturbing facts that came out in the Eichmann trial was that a psychiatrist examined him and pronounced him perfectly sane. I do not doubt it at all, and that is precisely why I find it disturbing. If the Nazis had all been psychotics, as some of their leaders probably were, their appalling cruelty would have been, in some sense, easier to understand. It is much worse to consider this calm, well-balanced, unperturbed official conscientiously going about his desk work, his administrative job, which happened to be the supervision of mass murder. He was thoughtful, orderly, unimaginative. He was obedient, loyal, a faithful officer of a great state. He served his government very well." He was not bothered much by guilt. I have not heard that he developed any psychosomatic illnesses. Apparently, he slept well. We can no longer assume that because a man is sane, he is therefore in his right mind. The whole concept of sanity in a society where spiritual values have lost their meaning is itself meaningless. A man can be sane in the limited sense that he is not impeded by his disordered emotions from acting in a cool, orderly manner, according to the needs and dictates of the social situation in which he finds himself. He can be perfectly adjusted. God knows perhaps such people can be perfectly adjusted even in hell itself. And so I ask myself, what is the meaning of a concept of sanity that excludes love, considers it irrelevant, and destroys our capacity to love other human beings, to respond to their needs and their sufferings, to recognize them also as persons, to apprehend their pain as one's own? End quote. Our concept of sanity, Thomas Merton is saying, is completely insane. Reading this passage, I hear someone thoroughly maladjusted to our society's value structure. If someone can take care of themselves and play their assigned role in the machinery of civilization, they are deemed psychologically sane, even healthy. Perhaps people are most often considered sick or mentally ill when they can no longer function properly. Emotional health is not typically measured by the ends towards which one is functioning, as long as they are legal. This is where religion steps in. Religions of all stripes proclaim the ends do matter. Faith traditions of a humanistic orientation, such as Unitarian Universalism and the liberal Christianity of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., proclaim that a healthy world is one in which all people are valued. We are healthy not when we are acting in a cool, orderly manner according to the needs and dictates of the social situation in which we find ourselves, but when we are living in alignment with life-affirming values. When love is our guide, when the well-being of others and of the earth do matter to us, then we may at times appear maladjusted, a little off balance perhaps, a little confused or depressed or frustrated, even a little angry or a lot angry. It can feel unsettling to feel angry at anything, even injustice. And indeed, even healthy anger is not a place to rest for long. There are dangers of being maladjusted too. It can take on a life of its own. Being maladjusted can become its own kind of pose, the rebel with or without a cause. As King says in Transformed Nonconformist, nonconformity in itself, however, may not necessarily be good and may at times possess neither transforming nor redemptive power. Nonconformity per se contains no saving power and may represent in some circumstances little more than a form of exhibitionism. Paul offers a formula for constructive nonconformity. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Nonconformity is creative when it is controlled and directed by a transformed life, and is constructive when it embraces a new mental outlook. End quote. I think of it this way. Maladjustment is healthy when it leads to readjustment, choosing something else as a guide. If we are maladjusted to the gods of wealth and status and bigotry and violence, then we need to realign ourselves with other gods or overarching values. It can be very helpful to pay attention to our feelings of disease or maladjustment. These feelings can be very difficult to sort out. Sometimes our maladjustment comes out as a no, and sometimes as more of a bleh. I'll use myself as example. Well, I've been through so many positive changes in my life recently, including getting married in August, and have so much for which to be grateful. My mind and heart have also been troubled. Like everyone now, I'm feeling tired and struggling to adjust to yet another wave of COVID. And it's on a steep upward slope at a time when many of us, myself included, cope to varying degrees with seasonal affective depression. But there's more to my recent feelings of dis-ease. I had an epiphany recently when a package came in the mail. Heather and I have been receiving many packages in the mail, largely because I've become something of a mail order junkie. For ease and Christmas shopping during a pandemic, I tell myself. But really, I've been turning to Amazon year-round and also to other retailers, a little more each year. This particular package, though, brought it home for me. Here's the package. UPS. I'm sure you've seen some like this. And what did it contain? This, a gift card I bought for a friend. This package, this amount of plastic for this gift card that I could have just sent email to him. As I looked at this packaging, a younger self in me, from my early 20s, I think, bursted onto the stage. The younger version of me used to get really angry at these envelopes with plastic windows. Where is it here? This. I remember in my early 20s, I used to hate this plastic. And I used to very carefully pull out the plastic and throw it in the trash and recycle everything else. I'm happy to say that while I don't take that much time with each envelope, I do tear envelopes in half now and recycle the portion without any plastic. The anger I felt was with myself, my 53-year-old self in 2022, for having become slowly more and more adjusted to waste. I used to get mad at this. I now gladly invite this and this and this into my home. This is all from the last 2 or 3 days. So sure, it makes sense to reduce potentially risky interactions in a store during the peaks of a pandemic by shopping online. It feels good to help the economy, I suppose. But the pandemic has only accelerated my own growing tendency to shop from the comfort of my couch and then wonder why I've gained a few pounds. My problem is not that I'm maladjusted. It's that I've become way too adjusted. Adjusted to waste, to choosing convenience and phone swiping on my couch, you know how it is, over shopping in person or simply buying less. I've also become way too adjusted to many other things. Excessive federal military spending used to upset me a lot. Hardly anyone raises a peep about this anymore. I've become adjusted or just accepted the fact that my tax dollars are supporting drone and other strikes that kill civilians, innocent people, far more than I know or want to know, as James Baldwin once described. While I don't think I've become adjusted to all sorts of norm-shattering behaviors in politics and the very real threats and current damage to our democracy and to our climate, I have become adjusted to reading about these things frequently on my phone or on my computer or sometimes books, and not lifting a finger to address them. Sure, if I exercised more, I'd feel better. Sure, everyone's feeling cut off or lonely or hopeless, at least at times during this pandemic. None of us should be hard on ourselves. But a good part of what gets me down is what I've let myself become adjusted to. This packaging, this phone, scrolling, seeing news as a consumer good, a validation of one's beliefs and a reason to demonize others, not as a call to compassionate and effective action. I don't feel the outrage I think I should be feeling when I stop to think about these things. But for some of the malaise I feel at times, I think is a symptom of an underlying dis-ease of over-adjustment to aspects of our society that have become all too prevalent. I mentioned earlier that this package contained a gift card for a friend. The card was to woodcraft. When I told my friend John that I would be off of work for 2 weeks over the holidays in between hospice jobs, he suggested I join him in his wood shop, his man cave in the garage, to make a gift for my wife Heather. John works as a community college teacher and had those weeks off himself. Now, please understand, I never do anything like this. Well, I liked wood shop in high school. I haven't done anything like it since, even as my son went through 11 years at a Waldorf school, making all kinds of beautiful things with his hands. On my online dating profile, a few years ago, about 4 years ago now, I wrote something like this. If you're looking for Mr. Fix-It, I'm not your guy. I'm fine with assembling things on the level of IKEA, but then again, I won't be hiding away in a man cave forever. It was honest and upfront. But so perhaps in a betrayal of that implicit promise, I guess I did hide away in a man cave, though at a friend's in just over 2 weeks for a couple hours a day, in month 4 of my marriage to a woman I met through online dating. But it feels so healthy. For one thing, I've strengthened a friendship with another man in town, something many men lack completely, a good friend. But I've also become absorbed in making something with my own hands. John kindly waited patiently for me in the aisle of Jerry's hardware store here in Eugene as I went through dozens of pieces of pine, laying them out in the aisle, picking out the ones that looked good together and had heart shapes in the grains for my sweetie. I worked a couple of hours or so a day for a week or so in John's man cave, then took the pieces home to add 3 coats of polyurethane at home, sanding lightly in between coats, making mistakes occasionally. I didn't sand quite as lightly as I thought I did, and learning from my mistakes. I've got a couple of steps to go before assembling it with John's help. I'm not changing the world with this project, but one of my gifts for Heather, a few weeks late so far, is something I'm making rather than buying. This is the top of I can show it here, the end table that I'm making. And the picture, the whole thing, looks like that. It'll all come together. Doesn't look so great over the computer, but anyway, I'm very proud of this. I may be loving it more than Heather at this point. I don't know. Okay. But it's been a good thing during this pandemic. I'm teaching myself to work slowly and steadily and very attentively as a spiritual practice. And the time I spent doing this was time I didn't spend on the news, although I still keep up to some degree, or on my distractions from stressful news, mostly involving other forms of screen time, including online board games. Small steps. But I'm a little more grounded now than I was a few weeks ago, more confident, less isolated, less addicted to the news and to unhealthy screen-based distractions, less addicted to shopping, realizing I can make things. I'm sleeping better. I believe I'll be a little better at my hospice work with my new job. And I believe I'll be better able to follow through on letter writing or whatever other action steps I decide to take to address the issues that most concern me, especially strengthening our democracy and slowing climate destabilization. My sister Kathy laughed long and hard when she heard that one of her brainy but not handy brothers was going to make a piece of furniture. She was also touched, I think, because she knows I was motivated by my love for Heather, who Kathy is so thrilled I found. Well, if I can do this, maybe I can change myself enough to take new actions to address global climate destabilization and the threats to our democracy. Martin Luther King said, "Human salvation lies in the hands of the creatively maladjusted, not the destructively maladjusted, not the maladjusted to show off and look good for one's peers, but the creatively maladjusted. Those who say no, but find in the no a greater yes, something creative and affirmative." When we feel maladjusted to something, it may take us a while to realize we need to say no to something, and it may take longer for us to find the yes that lies beneath the no. We may feel maladjusted for months or even years before we readjust to something else. I'm at the beginning of such a process, not the end. Wherever you are, I invite you to join me. May we be compassionate with ourselves and with others who have found the no but not yet found the yes. And may we keep moving forward moving towards yes at whatever pace we can. For the maladjustment, the no we must sometimes voice is but the doorway to the yes, the faith in which we may live, the affirmation of life and of ourselves and of all others, and the ground and the great love that holds us all. I close with a portion of a reading I've shared before and will likely share again by Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker, president of Star King School for the Ministry. It was included in the catalog that attracted me to Star King School. It captures best what I want you to take away this morning about the sacred that may be found in the no when it is part of a greater yes. There is an embrace of kindness that encompasses all life, even yours. And while there is injustice, anesthetization, or evil, there moves a holy disturbance, a benevolent rage, a revolutionary love, protesting, urging, insisting that which is sacred will not be defiled. Those who bless the world live their lives as a gesture of thanks for this beauty and this rage. End quote. May we honor the stirrings within our soul, the silent voices crying no as they prepare us to say yes. Blessed be, and amen.
Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day.